In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on February 2nd, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. New Orleans Pelicans versus Charlotte Hornets. The New Orleans Pelicans head to the Spectrum Center to take on the Charlotte Hornets on Monday night. New Orleans just beat the Grizzlies, dropped one to the 76ers, and has the Bucks on deck, so the schedule is not exactly doing them any favors right now. Despite a small recent uptick, this is still a team that has lost 16 of its last 21 games, and that kind of stretch usually leaves confidence a little shaky. Charlotte, on the other hand, just handled the Mavericks and the Spurs, with the Rockets coming up next, and the vibe around that locker room feels completely different. The Hornets have taken 9 of their last 12, and when a young group gets rolling like that, they tend to play loose and aggressive, especially at home. New Orleans is still shorthanded with DeJounte Murray sidelined, which keeps their guard rotation thinner than they would like and forces role players into bigger responsibilities. The Hornets remain without KJ Simpson and Mason Plumlee, but they have already learned how to function without them, so the disruption is not as big. The Pelicans have shown a pulse again with 3 wins in their last 5, which is at least a sign of life after that rough longer stretch. They already took the first meeting between these teams by a 116-112 score back on November 4th, and that kind of memory usually sticks with a young home team. Charlotte has quietly become one of the hottest teams in the league with 6 straight wins, and that kind of streak often comes with a little swagger and belief that close games will tilt their way. They look sharp in that upset over the Spurs on Saturday, and performance like that usually carries over when you are sleeping in your own bed and walking into a charged home building. But given the current form and the way the Hornets are trending, it makes sense to trust them to handle the number here and flip the script from the first matchup. As our first pick for this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The scoring profile for New Orleans starts with 114.4 points per game on 46% shooting, paired with a defense that is giving up 120.9 points on 48.1% shooting. From the outside, the Pelicans are hitting 33.7% of their three-point attempts, and they are converting 78.6% at the free throw line. They are allowing opponents to shoot 36% from deep while pulling down 44 rebounds per game, which gives them at least a fighting chance on the glass even when shots are not falling. Charlotte is putting up 116.2 points per game on 46.4% shooting, which shows they can score at a solid clip when the ball is moving. Defensively, they are allowing 114.6 points on 47.4% shooting, which is not exactly locked down, but it is serviceable when the offense is humming. The Hornets are knocking down 37.3% from 3 and 81.3% at the line, which quietly puts them in a pretty reliable zone in terms of shooting efficiency. They are giving up 36.7% from beyond the arc and collecting 45.8 rebounds per game, nudging them slightly ahead on the boards and giving them extra chances to control tempo. Those numbers do hint at offense, but the shooting percentages also suggest that if either side has even a modest cold stretch, things can slow down more than people expect. The previous meeting landed with both teams in the low 100 teens, which is high enough to feel entertaining, but not an automatic signal that this matchup has to be a track meet every time. With both teams capable of stretches of spotty execution, especially with New Orleans missing a key creator and Charlotte still learning to manage success, there is a very realistic path where possessions grind a bit and empty trips stack up. Free throws and three-point shooting are always wild cards, but given these profiles, a slightly more controlled, choppy scoring rhythm is a fair expectation rather than a pure fireworks show. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Houston Rockets versus Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers host the Houston Rockets on Monday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and there is a lot more going on here than a simple better team versus worse team setup. The Rockets just took down the Hawks and the Mavs and have the Celtics coming up, so their recent form looks strong and their schedule is not exactly soft. The Pacers are coming off wins over the Bulls and Hawks with the Jazz on deck, and they have quietly taken 3 of their last 4, which signals a team that is finally stabilizing a bit. Houston still profiles as the stronger overall group, and on paper, it makes sense that they are favored. The issue is that most of their stumbles have come away from home, with 13 of their 17 losses happening on the road, which is a real pattern, not a random blip. On top of that, they are missing Durant, so one of their top weapons is off the floor, and that puts more pressure on everyone else to fill gaps that are not easy to fill. Indiana, by contrast, is about as healthy as it has been all season, and it is hard to ignore that they have played roughly .500 basketball over their last 10 games once they finally got some continuity back. They have also earned 10 of their 13 wins in their own building, which matters in a spot where comfort and routine can level things out more than people think. Houston has the kind of style that bettors love. They guard well, they can get out and run, they can rip off quick scoring bursts, and they generally look like a team that understands how to stack winning plays. That kind of profile tends to attract money because it looks convincing to the eye and it feels safe. The spread, however, is not asking you who looks prettier on film. It is giving you a hint about how live the other side actually is. The current pricing suggests that the Pacers are not being treated as a throwaway underdog, which is exactly why Houston is not laying an inflated number here. Houston clearly has enough talent and structure to control large chunks of this game if things go their way. Indiana, though, has the kind of grit that can make that control really hard to maintain for a full 4 quarters. Covering by margin is different from simply winning the game, and that usually requires steady control across long stretches. The Pacers have cleaned things up with better ball security, more disciplined shot selection, and fewer self-inflicted wounds, which all combine to keep them within striking distance even if they fall behind. The line itself hints that this is more of a competitive clash than a lopsided matchup, which is why anyone eager to back Houston here should do it with their eyes open and not just trust reputation. Laying points with a short-handed Rockets team on the road feels more like forcing a position than taking a genuine edge. Taking the points with Indiana is not chasing some wild upset story. It is simply recognizing the situation, reading what the market is saying, and accepting that the Pacers have a very real chance to hang all night and even steal it outright if a few things break their way. As our first pick for this matchup, the Indiana Pacers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The scoring profile for Houston shows an offense putting up 116 points per game on 47.3% shooting, backed by a defense that holds opponents to 110 points on 46% from the field. From deep, the Rockets knock down 37% of their three-point attempts, and they shoot 75.3% at the free throw line, which is solid but leaves a little room for missed opportunities. They allow just 34.5% shooting from beyond the arc and dominate the glass with 49.2 rebounds per game, which helps limit second chances and slows down the kind of wild scoring swings that blow totals wide open. Indiana averages 110.7 points per game on 44.5% shooting, so their offense is a bit less efficient and can stall if looks are not clean. Defensively, they give up 118.4 points on 48.3% shooting, which is a problem on some nights, but it also means they can be pushed into stretches where they have to grind possessions instead of trading clean looks every trip. The Pacers shoot 34.4% from 3 and 76.9% at the line, which is respectable, but not the type of elite shooting that guarantees a free-flowing scoreboard. They allow 34.5% from deep and pull down 43.1 rebounds per game, giving up some size and extra possessions compared to Houston, which can naturally trim a few scoring chances over 4 quarters. Those numbers, taken together, paint a picture that is balanced rather than explosive. Houston's strong rebounding and three-point defense can slow the game into longer, more controlled possessions, even when they are scoring well themselves. Indiana's less efficient shooting and occasional offensive lulls can tug the pace downward whenever their jumpers are not falling. A few cold stretches on either side, combined with solid work on the glass and average free throw efficiency, can easily nudge this matchup into a result where the total lands lower than many expect from a cursory glance at raw scoring averages. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Minnesota Timberwolves versus Memphis Grizzlies. Minnesota rolls into this rematch looking like the steady grown-up in the room, sitting at 31-19, while Memphis shows up with that bruised 18-29 mark and a 6-game losing streak that feels as long as this winter. They just saw each other on Saturday, and that one was not subtle. Minnesota walked into FedEx Forum and hung 131-114 on a short-handed Grizzlies group that was scrambling just to put together functional lineups. On the surface, that kind of result screams just take the better team and move on, but that is exactly where spreads get sneaky. The market now has to price not only the talent gap, but also the memory of that blowout and the casual expectation that copy and paste is the most likely script. Memphis is still without Ja Morant, and that is huge. He is sitting with that elbow issue and is listed out through February 20th, which removes the franchise engine from anything they want to run late in games. Jaren Jackson Jr. is slapped with a questionable tag because of the quad, which means Memphis enters this one with their best player uncertain and a big chunk of their rim protection and spacing possibly compromised again. On paper, that sounds like a nightmare, but it also forces everyone else to play with a kind of looseness. Ty Jerome's season debut last time was 20 points and 6 assists out of nowhere. G.G. Jackson and Jalen Wells both came off the bench and looked like guys in a summer gym trying to win a contract, not veterans protecting a seed. That kind of unexpected punch is exactly what makes Memphis more interesting against a number than they are in a simple who wins conversation. Style-wise, the Grizzlies actually have a profile that keeps them hanging around even when the scoreboard gets ugly. They play at a pace a touch over 100 possessions, top tier in the league, and they move the ball, sitting near 29 assists per night, so it is not just one hero trying to trade haymakers with a loaded Minnesota roster. That ball movement matters on a night where the talent gap is obvious, because offensive variety is one of the best ways to mess with a favorite's defensive game plan. Suddenly, Rudy Gobert and the Wolves are not just locking in on one action, they are chasing shooters, tagging rollers, and dealing with a coach in Tuomas Isalo who is perfectly happy to spam whatever action generates a mismatch on the perimeter. When a team like that is catching points at home, the question quietly shifts from who is better to how often do they get blown off the floor in front of their own fans. And for Memphis this year, the answer has actually been less often than the reputation suggests. They are below 50% against the number overall, but at FedEx Forum they have been a bit more competitive, covering close to half the time. Minnesota, meanwhile, brings in the resume that looks gorgeous in a standings graphic, but a lot less pretty in a betting ledger. 31-19 overall, but only 23-27 against the spread, and basically break even when you look at their results with a suitcase in hand. They are elite in the efficiency columns, top 10 in offense and top 5 in defense, and lately they are running at a pace around 102 possessions in their last 5. But that efficiency is exactly why books keep making them big favorites, and why they so often end up in that spot where winning the game is not enough for anyone holding their ticket. Everyone remembers the highlight nights, the threes raining down against Dallas and Oklahoma City, the 22 and 18 three-pointers in back-to-back games, and the fourth quarter where they turned out the lights on Golden State, but spreads live in the boring middle, in the foul trouble, the bench minutes, the late timeouts, and the coach who is perfectly happy to pull starters once the result is safe. Honestly, that is where this game feels a little strange. Minnesota just proved they can torch this short-handed version of Memphis. But now they have to come back to the same building against the same opponent, knowing they have a bigger picture to manage with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle both carrying questionable tags on the injury report. If either star is limited or sits, the Wolves suddenly lean harder on depth and structure instead of pure star shot making, which keeps their floor high, but often tightens the ceiling on margin, while Memphis, already used to life without Morant and sometimes Jackson Jr., just keeps playing the same scrappy, share the ball style that made last game feel oddly competitive even in a double-digit loss. For a big road favorite facing a tired opponent, this would scream blowout spot, but for a big road favorite coming off a comfortable win facing the same crew that now has fresh film, fresh pride issues, and a crowd that just watched their kids fight back late in the fourth, it quietly sets up as the kind of grindy, slightly ugly game where the better team still wins more often, but the home side keeps clawing inside the number often enough to be worth the sweat. As our first pick for this matchup, the Memphis Grizzlies to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Saturday's meeting finished at a combined total in the mid-240s, and the way these two teams are built right now, it did not feel like some crazy outlier where everyone just hit impossible shots. Minnesota is averaging roughly 119 points per night on the season and doing it with real balance, top 10 in offensive rating, pushing the ball enough to be a little faster than their reputation, and absolutely hunting threes, especially since this 4-game win streak started, while Memphis, even in the middle of this skid, sits around 114 points per game with a pace north of 100 possessions and close to 29 assists a night. Here is the thing, defenses on both sides are not exactly in pampering form right now. Minnesota's season numbers still look solid, roughly 114 allowed per game and a top 5 defensive rating, but the recent stretch has featured a lot of trade buckets and trust we can outscore you energy, which is a polite way of saying they are leaning on that firepower and living with some leaky possessions, especially when lineups get smaller without a full complement of healthy starters. On the other side, Memphis is giving up about 116 to opponents overall, and the last handful of games tells the story. 133 given up to New Orleans, 108 to Houston, 112 to Charlotte, 114 again to New Orleans, and then that 131 from the Wolves on Saturday. And that is with their coach clearly trying to emphasize grit on the defensive end. Memphis's injuries also bend this matchup towards scoring, not away from it. No Morant means fewer slow, deliberate, let me walk it up and read everything possessions, and more possessions where the ball zips through multiple hands before somebody lets it fly. And no Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark, or Zach Edey strips away size and length that would normally help close out possessions with one shot and a rebound. Even if Jaren Jackson Jr. ultimately plays through that quad issue, he is being asked to carry so much offensively that foul trouble and fatigue are nearly built into the script, and foul trouble on a rim protector is one of the easiest fast passes to extra free throws, extra drives, and extra points. Minnesota's side of the injury sheet actually nudges scoring up too. Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle carrying questionable tags means there is at least some chance of either being limited or seeing their minutes managed, and that often pushes teams into more rotation chaos, more weird lineups, and a little less discipline on the defensive end, even while the offense still hums because modern spacing and three-point volume do not really care which name is on the back of the jersey as long as the shots are open. If both of them go, you get the full star power that dropped 33 from Edwards and 27 from Randle in the last meeting, with Naz Reid bombing threes off the bench and Jaden McDaniels cutting and spacing, which is a blueprint for another high-scoring night. If one of them sits, you trade some shot-making for even more pace and drive and kick basketball from guys trying to seize their minutes, which, funny enough, often helps totals more than it hurts them. Memphis bench unit is the last quiet nudge toward a high-scoring script. We just watched Ty Jerome drop 20 with 6 dimes in his first game of the season, G.G. Jackson throw in 19, and Jalen Wells add 15, and those are not the stat lines of a group that is shy about letting shots fly when they get their chance. You put that kind of confident second unit against a Minnesota team that is perfectly willing to run with anybody right now, fresh off a stretch of 123 on Oklahoma City, 118 on Dallas, and that 131 in this very matchup, and you end up with a game that feels far more like a track meet than a rock fight, especially once both coaches lean into their benches. All of that together paints a pretty clear picture. High pace, ball movement, three-point volume, two defenses in phases where they are living with a little more leakage than the early season numbers suggest, and a rematch setup where both offenses have fresh reads on the same coverages they just saw less than 48 hours ago. That usually spells another night where the scoreboard operator stays busy. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Philadelphia 76ers versus Los Angeles Clippers. The Philadelphia 76ers head into Monday's matchup at Intuit Dome looking like a group that finally knows who it is, and that alone gives this game a different feel than previous seasons. They have just handled the Pelicans and the Kings. They face the Warriors after this, and they come into LA with 11 wins in their last 18 outings, which is not eye-popping, but it is steady enough to take seriously. On the other side, the LA Clippers arrive in a strong groove of their own, fresh off a win over the Suns after a loss to the Nuggets, with the Cavaliers up next on their schedule. They have strung together 17 wins in their last 21 games, which tells you how well their core has been clicking even with moving parts in and out of the rotation. The injury and availability picture tilts in a specific way for this one, and it matters quite a bit for the spread. The 76ers are lining up with a full roster expected, no major holes in their regular group, while the Clippers have already ruled out Bradley Beal, Derrick Jones Jr., and James Harden, pieces that change their offensive ceiling and their spacing. Philly has started to put together some some genuinely solid basketball, and emotionally this is the sort of game they would love to steal from a Clippers team that has been steamrolling most opponents lately. What really stands out is how different this season feels for the 76ers compared to the last one. After spending an entire previous year never getting above the 500 mark, they have turned things completely around by never dipping below that line this time, which says a lot about consistency and mentality even if the roster is not radically different. Joel Embiid is finally stacking performances that look the same every night, with production that clearly belongs in any all-star conversation, and that kind of reliability in a star is exactly what keeps you in games on the road. There is still one big hiccup hanging over this team, and it is not a minor one. Paul George is suspended for 25 games for violating the league's anti-drug policy, and that absence stretches right through this matchup, taking away a key piece of their wing firepower. It adds an odd twist that he misses this one against his former team while Philadelphia tries to sweep the regular season series, which gives the game a quiet narrative edge even if the players will call it just another night. From a betting perspective, this matchup has quietly treated 76ers backers pretty well over time. They have covered in 14 of the last 20 meetings, which is a strong enough sample to at least raise an eyebrow, and they are also 5-2 against the spread in 7 recent road games, which shows they have traveled better than people might instinctively think. Those trends do not decide the game, but they do hint that the market has been a bit slow to adjust to how competitive Philly can be in this specific pairing. The Clippers, meanwhile, are not exactly limping in. They have taken 10 wins in their last 12 games, showing very little sign of slowing down, and they currently sit in the 9th seed in the West while realistic talk swirls about climbing as high as the 6th if they keep this up over the next stretch. Even without James Harden, they just handled the Suns with surprising ease on the road, winning 117-93, which says the system still functions when one of the stars is missing. There is a catch with this spot for LA that you cannot just hand-wave away. Monday's contest is the second night of a back-to-back, and in that setup, the Clippers have only one win in 7 games so far, which is a rough pattern for covering a spread against a rested opponent with a full roster. Whether Harden ends up suiting up here or not becomes a real hinge point, because his presence shifts the offensive structure and pressure points, and it noticeably changes how you would rate their chances relative to the number. For the 76ers, this is the opening chapter of a 5-game West Coast trip, and that kind of journey usually becomes a measuring stick for a team that wants to be taken seriously. Getting off to a strong start matters, especially when you are facing a defense as sturdy and disciplined as the Clippers have shown, and this group knows that starting a long trip with a confident performance can set the tone for the whole week. The matchup inside remains one of the biggest puzzle pieces. Guarding Embiid has been a persistent problem for LA, and in the last 10 meetings he has averaged 34.4 points and 12.6 rebounds, numbers that basically scream matchup nightmare. If he comes close to that level again, with the supporting cast healthy, the 76ers become very difficult to chase away from the spread, especially against a tired opponent. All of that leaves a picture where the rested team with the dominant big man, strong historical cover numbers in this matchup, and a clean injury report looks more reliable against the number than the home team running on tired legs with key absences. As our first pick for this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The scoring profile for this game starts to look more cautious once you look at the raw numbers for both offenses and defenses. The Philadelphia 76ers are putting up 116.7 points per game on 46% shooting from the field, while allowing 115.8 points on 46.7% shooting, which hints at games that can be high scoring but not always out of control. From long range, the 76ers are hitting 35.9% of their three-point attempts and knocking down 81.2% of their free throws, and they pull in 43.8 rebounds per contest, which gives them enough possessions but does not automatically create track meet pace. The Clippers sit slightly lower in raw scoring at 112.7 points per game on a stronger 47.8% from the floor, while allowing 112.6 points on 46.5% shooting on the defensive end. Their outside shooting sits at 36.6% from deep, and they are even sharper at the line at 83.8%, with 41 rebounds per game, which is respectable but not overwhelming on the glass. Those combined shooting splits and rebounding numbers suggest an environment where both teams can score efficiently, but the overall tempo does not have to explode, especially with one side on the second leg of a back-to-back and potentially more inclined to slow things down to conserve energy. The Clippers' strong defense, paired with the 76ers needing to manage a long road trip, leans toward a more controlled style where possessions matter, half-court sets are prioritized, and long stretches of physical defense drag the totals down rather than inflate them. Philly's ability to get to the line and LA's comfort in the mid-range can push the scoreboard up in stretches, but the overall statistical profile of both teams, along with the fatigue factor and defensive quality, points more toward a game that lands under rather than a full-blown shootout. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.